The government believes they always know best, and the city of Baltimore wants the feds to come in and check their work. Is this really necessary? And what does it say about the indictment of 6 police officers? Senator John McCain is here to dig into what this all means and a few choice words on government waste, which often takes more than a few syllables. Words of wisdom about a really viable female candidate for the White House to challenge Hillary Clinton, and a heaping help of hypocrisy for those who wasted their cash on a sham boxing match. Go ahead, put up the gloves. Let's get to it. I'm Ed Berliner, and this is The Hardline for Thursday, May 7th, 2015.
We pay more than any state in the nation to subsidize welfare. We pay an average of $6,800 per worker through public assistance. It costs this state $700 million a year to subsidize the profits at McDonald's and Burger King. And that is wrong, and that must stop.
Given that media and the battle of perception is so central to what the Islamic State is trying to do, the U.S. government has to be more quick to react and to understand the strength of its messaging and to be able to respond at the same kind of speed, focusing in on the key message of the Islamic State.
America's most wasted. We are not talking about that Cinco de Mayo party that you went to this week. We're talking about $1.1 billion of questionable spending that is coming out of Washington, D.C., and the American people want to know why, and they want to know why they should trust lawmakers with their money. So let's get to it. Here's the man who penned America's most wasted report. First in a series of reports, by the way. He is chairman of the Senate Committee on Armed Services, Republican Party presidential nominee in 2008, I should say. It's a pleasure to welcome Senator John McCain. Senator, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Ed, how are you?
It's a pleasure. I'm well. I have money in my pocket, as most of Americans do, and we are always wondering about where that money is going. This report of yours, though, it maybe shouldn't surprise anybody, though, Senator, because we have known about governmental waste for so long now, but the American people want to know, why aren't we doing anything about it? Why have we gotten to this point?
Well, I think one of the reasons is because there's a lack of accountability. We do have a Government Accountability Office, which does good work. We have oversight in Congress. But when you look at the growth of government, and over particularly the last 15 to 20 years, some of it necessary. You know, before 9/11, we never had a Department of Homeland Security. Now it's the second or third largest bureaucracy in Washington. We continue to increase the size of the Pentagon, even while we cut down on those that are the war fighters. And so the larger the bureaucracy, the more likely you're going to have money for bomb-sniffing elephants. I mean, it's sort of Parkinson's law, as I recall.
I do want to talk about that. $50,000 to test bomb-detecting elephants, $14 million for a duplicative catfish inspection office. Senator, this is just ridiculous stuff that we're talking about here, and the American people then want to know, how can we, and not just you, but lawmakers in general, they want to know, how can we trust you with our money when this is what we see all the time, when we have roads that are crumbling, kids that need education, and we also need a defense that's got to be funded properly?
Well, I think hold people accountable. And those duplicative and unnecessary spending, some of it can be traced right back here to Capitol Hill. For example, this catfish office, it's all because of the protectionism of southern states and southern representatives to prevent catfish from Vietnam to come into our country. And they are exactly the same. Catfish are the same the world over, and yet they have established a, quote, catfish office in the State Department for $1,400 million a year to look at catfish that come into this country. We have a Department of Agriculture. We have the capability to look at catfish, but they, in order to try to prevent them from being imported from Vietnam, they have established this. This is an example of a government waste pork barrel project that is so outrageous, a lot of which we got rid of when we did away with earmarking, but it still rears its ugly head. And this $14 million catfish office is the classic example.
I think it's even better than a classic example. You said a couple of moments ago about holding people accountable. Now, here comes a prime example. A Defense Department audit has found that a number of Pentagon employees use their government credit cards to gamble and pay for adult entertainment. Senator, quite frankly, when we uncover things like this, let's fire these people. Let's terminate them, get them out, and start cleaning out.
And we need, and we will, since some of the Department of Defense, we will be looking at individual cases as to what discipline is imposed and how serious it is. But if it is, as on the face of it, people should leave government service. But as you know, there are protections that people have for appeals and drag out the process. You know, back in when we had so much trouble in space and we had so many failures of rocket launches after the Russians had done Sputnik, they wanted to name one of them civil service because you couldn't fire it and you couldn't make it work.
But isn't that still the case, though? That's really a great place to start, because you know and I know that we have people right now sitting in civil service from the highest levels of government right down to the smallest office who say, go ahead, Senator, do your worst. You can't fire me because I've got protection. How do we get rid of those protections and make it fair?
Well, we tried to in the reform of the VA, and that's a classic example of what you're talking about. As you know, there's a huge scandal associated with the VA. 50 veterans who were seeking help in the Phoenix VA allegedly died while awaiting care, okay? Do you know how many people, and we've exposed scandal all over the VA, do you know how many people have been actually fired? Two, and 3 retired.
That's reprehensible.
Now that's the extent of the responsibility that has been held for what is just really most scandalous, disgraceful conduct that one can ever imagine. I don't know anything worse than neglecting our veterans.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, coming from a military family, and I appreciate that every single day. I got about 2 minutes left, Senator. There's 2 things I want to ask you about briefly. You basically raised a very good point. Why is the president inviting a lawless China to play in the Pacific? And this is in RIMPAC. These are the war games there. It makes a lot of sense. Why invite China in when, quite frankly, they don't seem to want to be part of the good society, if you will, here on the planet?
And you forgot to add, Ed, that when they were invited, they showed up with a spy ship.
Yep.
I mean, you can't make it up. It's all part of this view of this president, this administration, that we want to get along with everybody. We won't provide arms to the people who are being slaughtered in Ukraine, not American troops slaughtered. Look at a map of the Middle East in 2009, January, when President Obama came to the presidency, and you look at a map of the Middle East today, my friend. It is a feckless policy that has created a vacuum that has been filled by bad influences. It's called leading from behind.
In about a minute or so that I have left here, you mentioned the Middle East. So let me ask you, Senator Tom Cotton recently made the comment where he said ISIS is winning. Do you agree with that? That must chafe at you.
I think that you could argue that there has been some successes on our part and our allies, but overall, there's still no strategy concerning Syria whatsoever. They continue to be able to launch attacks even inside Baghdad. So you certainly could argue that ISIS is still enjoying significant success. Now, the retaking of Tikrit was helpful and a couple of other things, but overall, we have barely made a dent in ISIS, who still control the second largest city in Iraq.
I got about 15 seconds left. Very quickly, do you have any suggestions or any advice for the 2016 candidates at this stage?
Remember that now national security and foreign policy is now the #1 concern of Republican primary voters. It's bigger an issue than any time since the 1980 election when Ronald Reagan was elected. Pay attention.
at a very difficult time in the United States history when we have so many people who are coming after us, and we must make sure that they do not hurt us again. Senator John McCain, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I thank you for your time. I will look forward to doing it again, and much luck with America's Most Wasted.
Thank you, Ed. Anytime.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir. Let's hope that indeed the senator can get something done and stop wasting the ridiculous amounts of money in Washington. Don't waste your time. Stay with us. The Hard Line continues.